Welcome to Caribbean Calendar. I'm your host, Suzanne Richards, and I'm honored to have in our chair today City Councillor Rawlson King. Rawlson King's family comes from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and he's also Ottawa's first Black City Councillor. I am so excited to have you here today, and when I look at all the things that you've done, all the committees that you're on, you were appointed to the Board of Public Health, the Ottawa Public Library, and the Quartier Vanier BIA, the Business Improvement Association. You continue to serve as council liaison with the city's anti-racism and ethno-cultural relations initiative, and you're leading the implementation of the City of Ottawa's anti-racism strategy. Wow. With everything that you're doing, you're here today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to join you.
I really want to hear about this anti-racism strategy. Here's the thing. Folks may not know that I also work in the field of anti-racism, equity, and inclusion on a different level. And I want to hear what's happening with the city. I'm also a former city employee, so I'm really super interested in hearing about the strategy. So first, can I ask you why? Why an anti-racism strategy?
We have an anti-racism strategy because of the community itself. So when I was elected in 2019, as you can imagine, there was great elation throughout the Black community, the racialized community, the Indigenous community, because there was finally a Black city councillor in our over 150-year history at the city. So there was great elation in April of 2019. And then literally the next month, May 2019, there was great deflation in the community because somebody in my ward, in Ward 13, had the N-word spray painted on their garage door saying, "Get out." And this was a family that lived in this community for 20 years. The matriarch was a doctor who provided medical services to people. And when this happened, community members, different Black community organizations, as well as other allied organizations, literally came in their driveway and asked me to come. And they pointed to the defaced garage door, and they said, "This is awful. These individual acts of racism are awful against our community, but what's worse is not being treated fairly by our government, not being able to apply for a job and know that you have a fair shot at that job or a fair shot at a contract." The City of Ottawa basically vendors out over $1 billion of contracting a year. So they turned to me in the driveway and they said, Councillor King, what we would like to see, not unlike other municipalities, is an office that deals with racism and ultimately an anti-racism strategy. So they asked me the question right there in the driveway. They said, "Would you be a champion for that?" And I said, yes. And 8 months later, the first budget process that I was involved in, I was able to work with Mayor Jim Watson at the time and the rest of council to advance the creation of an anti-racism office and eventually an anti-racism strategy. So that was at the complete behest of the community. They asked for it, and the fun thing about what emerged was everything that they asked for was implemented. The community specifically asked for improvements in terms of the way that we engage with governance, the way that we engage with youth development, in terms of employment, in terms of economic development. And all of these areas were included into the strategy, as well as recommendations that were based on consultations that were held with the community members. Okay. So that's what's really exciting about this. But the whole initiative emerged from the community.
Right. Well, thank you. Thank you for answering the call, because often, you may run into a politician in the mall or the grocery store and be like, "Hey, would you?" And it's like, "Call my office," right? And you answered the call right then and there. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the work that you're continuing to do and making sure that our voices are at the table. I want to ask you about those types of aggressions. You talked about that N-word that was spray painted on their garage door. People in the community, people who are giving back. And what other types of aggressions are we seeing maybe an increase of or more frequently in the city of Ottawa?
Well, we're definitely seeing more hate crimes, and that's one of the reasons why I'm working with some of my colleagues to see if there's going to be the potential for more investments around anti-hate, especially the creation of educational programs, so that we can combat the increasing levels of anti-Black, of anti-Semitic, and Islamophobia that is emerging in our city. It's important to address these issues not just through police response, though police response and the establishment, the reestablishment of a hate crimes unit was very important. What's more important, I think, is ensuring that people are educated, people understand the impact of their actions. We have to remember that racism is something that is taught. I think as children come out of the womb, they're not coming out biased. The bias emerges from the interactions that they have in their lives, within society, at school, in terms of your family. So I think we really need to have some strong education programs so that we can ensure that we are addressing the root causes of racism. But we are seeing all sorts of issues emerge around microaggressions, the way that people are treated when they get on a bus, the way that people are treated when they're accessing services. I think it goes beyond city services and workplaces where there are obviously still challenges. The city is looking at introducing and really ensuring that there's widespread training and education internally. But I mean, that's a continuous challenge. We're seeing different organizations at the city adopting equity, diversity, and inclusion programs so that employees can have a forum for discuss where biases lay within the organizations and how to extricate that or how to try to address those challenges.
So what's the city's role in that for these businesses? Are they're coming forth to the city implementing it, or are they notifying the city? Like, what's the city's role?
Well, the one thing we're doing is we're getting our house in order first. That's one of the big areas of focus. We want to ensure that we continue to be an employer of choice. We want to ensure that when people go to work, they feel safe, they feel accepted. So we're working on that in terms of procurement, as an example, with businesses. We want to ensure that businesses have a fair shot at winning city contracts. And so we've implemented policies. Our chief procurement officer is actually pursuing a program of social procurement that would ensure that we diversify and we look at equity as a consideration when our
contracting.
Absolutely.
So are businesses or BIPOC businesses, are they able to identify currently in the procurement process that they are from the community, or is that something that's coming?
We're working on that, and that's something that is coming. So we gave active direction to city staff to look at this, and these are issues that are actually contained within the anti-racism strategy. Recommendations were made by the community for these types of improvements. But you're absolutely right. Data is important. We need to know who we're dealing with in order to rectify some of the challenges that are confronting these businesses. But we want those businesses to be successful. I want to ensure that, if you apply for a job, your last name does not influence whether you get that job. So these are very important elements that we heard from the community, and we're going to pursue them with vigor at the city.
You mentioned microaggressions before. Microaggressions is a really interesting word for me. I don't like it because really the effects of microaggressions are actually macro. They're quite large. Absolutely. And some people might think, oh, it's just a little thing. But if you imagine, one little mosquito bite. First of all, some people are get infected by one little bite, you know, and multiple bites, those multiple microaggressions have deep impact on us. And so I hope that is, you know, one of the considerations. So maybe you can talk about some of the concrete actions that we see shaping the city or shaping the strategy. What are some of the things that are being implemented?
Well, one of the key things, I think, when you talk about microaggressions, that's one of the reasons why we want to catalyze more education within the community. We want to ensure that there's more dollars towards that. That's something separate from that's outside of the city itself, kind of dealing with the community at large. And so there's a two-track process. So the anti-racism strategy deals with the services and the initiatives that the city offers, the workplaces, but the other issue is what's occurring in the community. And there's a wonderful initiative called United for All, which is driven by 40 organizations attempting to address hate and hate-driven violence within the community. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to advocate for some seed money so that we can address those microaggressions in the community with education. You're absolutely right. You know, it's a misnomer. Because we've had calls from community members who have lived next to intolerant people for decades. And, you know, it's the things that you would think are small at the beginning, but you're right, they accumulate in terms of their impact. And, you know, we've had we've interceded with neighbors who you know, call 311, call all these complaints on their other neighbors simply because they're black. You know, if their car is in front of the driveway just an inch, they're going to call. If they think there's too much noise, they're going to call. And so you're absolutely right. It goes beyond nuisance to really troublesome behavior. And these troublesome behaviors really need to be addressed, I think. You know, at the start, we have to do a lot more outreach in terms of the community. We have to talk about the real mental health impacts that this has on people because of the cumulative effect of the discrimination that some people are experiencing. So you're absolutely right. I think that's a driving factor for us within the community, is to ensure that we can at least get seed funding so we can start a set of programs or programming that really addresses the root cause and has real conversations in our community as to the impacts and ways to mitigate those impacts, address the impacts that people who are affected by the discrimination feel, and also address the root cause, especially with young people, telling them, you know, this isn't right, it's not okay, and at the end of the day, you know, making them understand that there's real impact to their words, their deeds, their actions.
I'm finding that our youth are so amazing, and I learned so much from our youth in terms of their voices. I feel that they are, from our resilience, their roots are just so strong, and that they speak up. And is the community engaging with youth to make sure that their voices are heard? Often, you know, it's the seniors, right? The elders that are sitting at the table telling the youth what they need. So I'm just wondering, is there opportunity for our youth to have voices around the table when it comes to this strategy?
Absolutely. So the wonderful thing about this strategy is that it's really open to everyone, and there's a specific area that's looking at improving youth outcomes in the community and through city services. The city does a lot of engagement through multiple programs, including Youth Futures, to provide youth, especially from the Black community, from racialized communities, and from the Indigenous communities, with opportunities for work experience in the city, which is just incredible. But I can say without a doubt, whenever I'm traveling the city, talking at events, especially with Black youth, I'm enthused because I see the talent, I see the expertise. I think of when I was a youth, and the reality is that these kids are blowing us away.
Out of the water.
So it's important to have services for them, and we're advocating for that. Just in my ward, I'm working with Youth Ottawa and with the North Gloucester Giants to, enhance a field house in Overbrook in Gilles Julien Park. So we've leased that field house to that organization, and they're working on renovations, securing the resources for renovations so that we can have educational programs, recreational programs, nutritional programs for our youth. We're also working with Youth Ottawa on the potential for a youth engagement program. The idea might evolve into a scenario where youth from across the city run mock city hall meetings and act as representatives for their ward for a year. And we've been talking with Black youth organizations about the potential of helping them hold a budget consultation specifically for youth. Okay. We're starting to get into the budget process for 2024, and I was really proud not just to have a ward budget consultation, because we know that budgets for the city set the expectations and our priorities of where we're spending money. We also this year, once again, in my role as council liaison for anti-racism and ethnocultural relations initiatives, held a budget consultation specifically for the Black, Indigenous, and racialized communities. So we could tell them about where we are hearing where the needs are, and also to have a conversation about the different initiatives that are being put in place.
So there's actual initiatives that are coming forth from these sessions.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
Amazing. So you talked about, partnerships, community partnerships, Go Gloucester Giants, great team, and I'm so happy to hear about the field house. I want to know about the different levels of government that you are working with. The reality is we're in Ottawa. How are you collaborating with the different levels of government to ensure that this strategy is successful?
Well, I'm always having discussions with my colleagues. One of the innovations during COVID was that all the elected officials in the Ottawa, Vanier, provincial, and federal ridings would come together and speak on a regular basis. So during COVID, I was speaking with our local MP, our local MPP, and other city councillors within our district on a regular basis. It was almost a weekly basis, so we could share information about the emergency response. We continue to meet regularly, so I continue to meet regularly with our MP, the Honourable Mona Fortier, with our MPP, Lucille Collard, and also with my colleagues within the riding boundaries, who are Councillor Stephanie Plante for Rideau-Vanier, as well as Councillor Tim Tierney for Beacon Hill-Sayreville. So we meet on a regular basis, and we talk about all number of issues, including challenges around racism. And I'm really proud of that, because we have wide-ranging conversations about impacts to racialized communities, as well as communities with low-income prevalence. We talk about the key issues that need to be addressed, the high-priority issues such as affordable housing, improving transit, improving the state of infrastructure. So we talk on a regular basis, and one of the areas of focus has been racism and addressing that. In fact, my colleagues at the federal and provincial level have engaged with youth on that topic and have held their own workshops where they've invited me to talk about that topic. And their key focus, and I know that that's what's inspiring you, is really ensuring that we have better quality of life for our youth. So often the discussion is with our youth about how we can improve the outcomes around especially employment and economic development opportunities.
Right, yeah. That's amazing. I'm so happy to hear that. You know, often we not forget about, but it seems to be an afterthought sometimes. And really, without our youth, really, they're our tomorrow. So
Absolutely.
we need to, in my humble opinion, we need to invest and invest in a big way.
Well, that's what energized me to get involved in politics. So I'd come home after a long day of work, and I was living in a community where in certain areas, 1 out of 3 children are in poverty, and that's unacceptable. So, you know, that's a driving factor, and especially in a community where I live, Overbrook, where more than 30% of the residents are Black or of color. It's really important that we have a strong voice advocating for our youth. The youth are strong. They've got strong voices, but their voices aren't often heard around the table. So we want to make sure that we are able to project their voices around the governance tables, such as the council table.
Right. Well, it's so amazing because you have I mean, obviously it's a passion for you. It's not just, you know, this is my platform. You've made a commitment to this strategy. But you've also made another commitment that I want to talk about. You and your wife, Linda, you've made a commitment. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, you know, during COVID, we were working at home. We're both workaholics, and, you know, like many other Canadians, not having the opportunity to really go out and do things, we saw a little bit more money each month accumulating in our bank accounts. So we said, wouldn't it be good to offer youth an opportunity, a scholarship? And my wife is a double graduate from Carleton. She also sits on the board of governors for Carleton. I have a proud association with Carleton, holding a Bachelor of Journalism and Legal Studies, as well as a Master in Communication. So we both did undergraduate and graduate work there. And one of the gaps that we saw was a lack of scholarships for the School of Art and Culture, where my wife obtained her degrees. She is an independent Indigenous curator. I'm so proud of her. She makes me look inadequate, which I love, based on all of her experience working at the National Gallery of Canada, the Museum of Civilization at the time, and then as well at the Museum of History, running the Indigenous Arts program or the collection, managing that collection at the Government of Canada. And one of the things we had identified was that there was a lack of scholarships for people who are studying art history, film studies, cultural studies. So we decided to establish a scholarship specifically for the Black, Indigenous, and racialized students who want to study culture, because it's really important.
You know, I love that, right? Thank you for doing what you're doing. We only have a few minutes left. Councillor King, what is the thing that you would like the most for our viewers to walk away with after today's interview?
I think we need to be kinder to one another,
yes,
especially after COVID. I think we have to think about the impact of our words, our actions, our deeds. I think we have to realize that you know, there isn't some immeasurable gulf between people just because there might be difference in appearance or different in cultures. I think that people at the root want the same thing.
Yes.
They're human beings, and they want to be treated equitably, with respect and dignity. And I think that's something that, especially with COVID and people having been in social isolation, something that we have forgotten.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that we need to rediscover.
Yes.
That your neighbor is more like you than different than you.
Right.
And so I think that that's really important, and that's something that, you know, I strive for every day to ensure that people know that you know, across the board, you know, people are thinking
Yeah.
of should be thinking of each other, and we should especially be thinking and investing in our youth.
Yes.
I agree with you. I mean, it might sound blasé, but the
It's
youth
the
are our
reality,
future.
right?
And
let's be kind to our youth as
yes.
well, right?
And
as
take
we're
them
kind to each
seriously and listen to them,
Yes.
and listen to their concerns, and ensure that
Yes.
they have the best, because you know, they're the next generation that will ensure that our city remains the strong place that it is today.
Yes.
So it's important for us to you know, think of others and to continue to invest in our youth.
Thank you so very much for being our guest today. I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for the work that you're doing. Councillor King, thank you for being on Caribbean Calendar.
Thank you.